You're listening to Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. We're one pride and all grit, with a passion for Detroit Lions football. Whether you're between meetings, between classes, sitting in traffic, or just relaxing at home, if you have time to pass, pass it with Passing Time. Detroit Lions Talk.
Okay, all right, we're on the clock, and you're passing time with us. This is Brian.
I'm Brian. This is Rob.
I'm Rob, and thanks for joining us today. This is your new go-to Detroit Lions podcast. Today we're gonna break it up a little bit, but first we're gonna get into just our feelings going into where do we feel now, and how does that relate to where we felt last year? And Brian and I were talking a little bit about this before the pod, and the excitement level last year was like, man, we're climbing the mountain and we're going to get there, right?
It was. I mean, you think about coming off of that NFC Championship almost win, and our roster was amazing. We were excited. We got Zeitler. We had, Davenport coming in. We had a lot of excitement going into the 2024 season, and I thought we had the best roster, in the NFL at that point.
Arnold was a great pick. He fit the team. We needed a guy out there in the corner going into the year.
I mean, we went into 2023 and our DB room was thin, and that was a need. We addressed that need in 2024, back-to-back picks in first and second round, and we felt amazing going into 2024, thinking we're not gonna have to worry about that DB room. We traded for Carlton Davis. We picked up Amik Robertson. We drafted these two guys. We're in good shape.
Yeah. And maybe the feeling right now is what maybe Philly fans feel or the Patriots fans have felt, but it doesn't feel as exciting right now, right? It feels like,
you think about, are we the darling anymore? Is the shine starting to rub off of the Lions a little bit? Are we... Have we lost a little bit of that off-season, excitement to the Bears? Are they the newest shiny thing that people are looking towards?
Well, you don't want to be the darling. The darling is kind of like the kid that you pat in the back and say, "Oh, good job, man! You got 2 points." You want to build a reputation of being the bully, being the big guy on the block, and the Bears can take that reputation of being the darling, right? The Lions need to move into the next level.
And I think they are, right? I mean, it's almost an expectation now for the Lions to be where we're at and to be at the top of that mountain. Not necessarily the peak, but we're getting closer. So when kind of thinking about this, that our excitement is a little bit less, I started to dive in a little bit to the roster and thinking, well, what's different? Why am I less, or maybe why are we less excited about the 2025 Lions versus the 2024 Lions? And I think there's a couple things going on there. I mean, the 2024 Lions was coming off a sliver away from a Super Bowl, right? So we were close, and we could taste it. And so
continuity in the coaching staff coming back last year.
Everybody was coming back, and this year things are a little bit different. We were top of the NFC, but we went one and done. We lost our 2 biggest names in the coaching staff: the offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, and now we're bringing in John Morton and Shep. Kelvin Shepard, and
Shep's been with us. He's got the grit. He's been around. He's seen it done before.
But he's new, right? So that's the big question mark. Will there be this learning curve to Kelvin Shepard? Will there be a step back from the defense? Because let's be honest, Aaron Glenn was a seasoned veteran at what he did. He was very talented. He was a motivator. He was of men. And he was a great guy to have in our locker room and on the sideline.
When the Lions got Aaron Glenn, when Dan recruited him to Detroit, he was a big get, and he was a big get for a reason. And he was just hired away to the largest football market in the United States to be the head coach. So there's no doubt that you're probably, from a coaching perspective, going to take a slight step backwards, right?
And that's what's scary, right? I think that's part of why we're less excited going in, because there's a question mark there. And then on the other hand, the offensive side, you look at John Morton. We had Ben Johnson, who was everybody was he was sought after as a head coach for the last couple of years. He stayed with the Lions in 2024. He now has been wooed and taken by a rival, right? And a rival who has been moving and shaking.
Yeah.
So, and what we replaced him with was what I would consider a little bit less sexy, a little bit more gritty,
Yeah.
a little bit, where there's again a question mark because he had a very short stint in New York and it was unsuccessful. But he was also a guy that's been with us in the past and helped build the playbook. And he was with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, and they know each other. I think Dan has a trust in John Morton. And so I think that that's going to be something that is going to help build us or get us through this season. So,
yeah, I don't want to sound like a soured X here with Ben Johnson because I think he's a great coordinator for the Lions. We were lucky to have him. But at times it felt like he was kind of this too pretty for the Dan Campbell regime, right? We were doing a few things that were a little gimmicky when we could just
a little
win.
Cute, right? I mean, he was a little cute. There was times that we're 3rd and 1 and he's getting a little cute, you know? And I think John Morton's going to be a little bit more like, let's go get it. Let's hey, we have a Penei Sewell. Let's give it to David Montgomery and go behind our best offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be different. Do I think there's still going to be some flair and some trick plays? Yes, I think that's a Dan Campbell thing as well. This is a Dan Campbell offense, and I think John Morton is going to orchestrate that. I think Ben Johnson was really talented at orchestrating a Dan Campbell offense.
Yeah. So wait a minute. You're telling me we're getting the same head coach back, and this is not his first year, and we're over here complaining about the coaching staff?
Well, Dan Campbell, let's be honest. Dan Campbell's the man. He should have been coach of the year. He is a leader of men. He is a motivator. Like, I want to run through a wall for him, and I mean, I know this team does too. So he's coming back. If you have a Dan Campbell, in Dan Campbell we trust, and we are going to be fine.
So, think about some great head coaches in the history of head coaching, and think about Phil Jackson as an NBA coach. Go ahead, name his assistant coaches in the turnover every year, right? Think about Bill Belichick. Actually, we can name some of the turnover.
And we don't want those guys.
And he retreaded.
Those guys back, right?
Yeah, he retreaded.
Oh, we don't want him back.
So maybe we're overanalyzing. That's our job, though. We're going to be on the spot, and we're supposed to get down in the nitty gritty, but it does feel like, man, the beginning of the season could start off a little shaky as we get our bearings, but there is some continuity in the coaching staff. There's some new faces, some new changes.
And the other tricky thing will be is that our schedule is going to be tough. And if you looked at that, Vegas has rated us to be the 3rd hardest schedule in the NFL this coming year. And that's before the schedule is even released, which we will walk through with you guys.
Quick tease. Next week on the pod, we're going to do rapid fire. We're going to go through all the games. We're going to have a little analytics behind it. We're going to say win, loss, and we're going to build this thing out. You don't even have to watch the season next year. You put your bets in right after you watch the show, get good odds, and we're going to go through it. But go ahead.
Sorry. But yeah, I mean, like the Vegas has picked us to have the 3rd hardest schedule going into 2025. And we'll walk through some of the other NFC North teams, but it's going to be tough. We have some really difficult road games ahead, and our NFC North is already going to be a tough division.
Yeah, win the North, make the playoffs. It doesn't matter what you do and how you do it. You win the North, you make the playoffs. We saw the bye week and what happened. You take a week off, which they needed last year with injuries. Then you get bamboozled by the Commanders.
Right. Which brings me back to the idea of like the excitement going into our roster and going into the 2025 season, because I had to take a dive into our roster. Like, what does it look like now after the draft? We have gone through free agency, and it might still move and shake as we get closer to training camp. But right now, looking at the 20 returning starters from the 2024 season, we replaced one of them. And we talked about this last week. We replaced DJ Reed, or replaced Carlton Davis Yes, Carlton Davis with DJ Reed, and now we look at Zeitler left, but now we've drafted a couple guys, a couple dirtbags, in order to come in and create some depth. So our right guard position right now might not be as high as it was with Zeitler, but our depth is unbelievably more amazing, right? It's
going into the year, it feels like, okay, like offensive line, check.
yeah.
Right. Okay, like they're gonna have
Yep.
great depth there. They're gonna sustain injuries, and they're gonna have guys behind that can kind of pick it up. So I feel pretty good about that.
But then you look through our roster, and all you hear from all of us, right, is like, we didn't get an edge. So how are we going to survive the 2025 season without an edge across from Hutch?
Mhm.
And I get it, because Davenport, we all can tell you, hasn't stayed healthy. And last year he played 2 games, and that's all we got of him. But he's averaged 11 games, 10 and a half, 11 games a season. And so if we can get that from him, and really if we can get that from him at the right time, he's a talented individual. He's a great complement to Aiden Hutchinson, and he is a leader. So, I mean, this guy wants and motivated to be on the field. It's not like he wants to get hurt. And I'm going to tell you, I'm like, he is going to be a force if he's on the field. So that's the tricky thing. And then you look at the depth behind him, and we have now a Muhammad who we liked last year, and he helped, was serviceable. We have a Hassanin, who I'm excited about as a rookie, and whether he makes the squad or not. But I think he could be one of those guys that holds an edge, who can do simple things well.
Situational guy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he could, we're not asking him to get 16 sacks. We're asking him to hold an edge, crush a can, so that Hutch can get 16 sacks, right? And I think there's also that worry that Hutch might not necessarily be where he was going into 2024.
And maybe not at the beginning of the year he won't. That's maybe an unfair and unrealistic expectation for him. But as he builds in the year, he's a pretty resilient guy.
And he's a guy that in the past has played 99% of snaps. And was productive. I mean, not often do you get an edge who can get all that production, those pressures and sacks, while still playing the run.
Yeah. Let's go back to Davenport. What if I were to tell you, you got to, say Davenport's off the roster. You can go out there and you can sign a former first-round draft pick. That's proven it. When he's healthy, when he's on the field, he is a difference maker. And then I were to tell you, because I do a little bit of math for a living, if he averages 10 and a half, 11 games, and he's with the Lions here year 2, and he played 2 1 year, so to get to that average, he's got to play a full season. And that guy's going to be on your team this year, opposite of Hutch, which a lot of teams like this guy, Davenport. I mean, he's a good player.
He is. I'd love to see an interview from him, because, I mean, I can imagine he is just sitting, stewing in his probably big house. But anyway, sitting there stewing, because, like, the reality is everybody's counted him out. Like, he's already been counted out by all of us, because he's not going to stay healthy. I'm just waiting for him to just have a breakout season.
Yeah, that would be something that could push the Lions over the edge right there. Just complimenting Hutch, and then we haven't talked about the interior, which they addressed through the draft with their most draft capital right there in their first round pick.
Tyleek.
Guys that can go in there, take up a block, take up 2 blocks, fill gaps, and allow the other guys to work. Let linebackers flow down, let the ends crash. That could make a big difference there as well.
And Tyleek, who we've already compared to Aleem, right? And Aleem's going to be gone for a little bit to start the season, but if we have Tyleek and we have DJ Reader and Roy Lopez, and we have guys like Levi Onwuzurike, and we have guys that can fill and continue to get pressures from the interior. When Aleem gets back, it's going to be like, it's going to be exciting, right? And whether we have him at the beginning of the season or the end of the season, I'd rather have him at the end of the season.
Yep.
Yeah. So, if we can time this right, and if we can make it to that playoff spot, and if we can get things rolling at that spot, that's what we all ultimately want, right? We don't care necessarily if we have 15 wins or 10 wins. We want to get that last win.
Yep. That's the most important part. So other areas, we talked a little bit about cornerback. The Lions are a little thin at safety. You talked about Maddox. He could be a key guy for the Lions
You
this year as
know,
well.
you hear about him training at that safety spot. You hear about him possibly losing a step at corner and then him making a transition to safety. And if he has that versatility at being able to play corner in a need or being able to play safety at a need, I mean, really, right now we have the two best safeties in all of football. And we have a pretty solid corner room. So we're looking at and we're arguing about depth.
Yeah.
So being able to have him fill a depth piece, I'm excited. I'm happy with that.
These are rich people problems right
Right?
here. These
Oh
are
my
these
gosh!
are
Like,
good things.
I
Yeah.
mean, is it sad that we lost Iffy? Well, yeah, but Iffy also didn't see the field because he was unhealthy.
Yeah.
Is it sad that we cut Brandon Joseph? I just felt like he was a guy that we could count on a little bit in that to play a decent role. But he also didn't fit the character pieces. So I mean, I appreciate that they drew a line and they moved on. I think that Avonte Maddox could service that role there. And then there's also this guy named Dan Jackson that we drafted.
Yeah, he could. I mean, so another guy that's going to be right on that bubble of making the roster. But if he pushes in, finds a way.
Sure. And you hear Brett Holmes already saying in some of his press conferences saying like he is going to be a special teamer and he's going to be in all of our special teams from the start. So when he's already kind of gushing about this guy and his ability to play that other part of the team, that not necessarily the offense or defense, but that special teams, he looks like he's going to be one of those guys that maybe if he's on the fringe, he's going to be able to make that team.
So. Yeah, I mean, but Lions, they got a few guys that are kind of special teamers, right?
Sure.
Hockey. I mean, they got a few guys. So you need that and then a little bit more, right? To add that surefire depth, and hopefully he can kind of fill that role.
Yep.
Wide receiver. I mean, if Tesla and if Lovett can, I mean, there's a couple key guys there that if they can make this roster.
But you look at what we kept last year, right? And we kept 5, maybe 6 guys as wide receivers. And if you think about it, Amon-Ra's coming back. J-Mo's going to have a full season. Khalif is there as probably our 4th. Tim Patrick, our 3rd. And then Tesla.
Yeah.
So if Tesla can add to that room, that's an exciting piece.
So best case scenario here is like, obviously make the team there, and then over the course of the year, just see snaps go up and go up and go up. And you mentioned something before we fired the pod up about Tesla and the draft, and a couple teams were kind of right there in the mix to take him, and the Lions made a pretty bold move moving up.
And you wonder, and it's all speculation. You don't know for sure. I don't have the insight exactly about what's going on, but at 71, the New Orleans, the pre-draft process, Tesla had a really good tie and had really good vibes with the New Orleans Saints at 71.
Okay.
And the Lions traded up to 70.
Yeah.
And then at 72, we also had I'm trying to remember who had 72. I think it was because I know at 74 the Denver Broncos were there, and they ended up taking Pat Bryant.
Yeah.
And another wide receiver.
Solid pick.
Solid pick, right? So you look at these guys that possibly could have moved into that Tesla market, and we moved into 70. So you brought up another thing, like kind of a speculation, a kind of like a conspiracy theory that, does Tesla want to be a Lion?
Yeah, this will get buried with the family, but the guy that showed up in a Lions jersey with his name on the back, did he have a couple phone calls with the Lions staff saying, hey, like I had really good workouts here?
Buffalo was the 72.
Okay.
Again, Buffalo was another one of those guys that had a good pre-draft experience with Tesla. And can you imagine, like, Tesla said, hey, Lions, Buffalo's calling me right now.
The 71, the 72, and 73 seem like they're very interested. And the Lions, the market says they may have overpaid. We can agree or disagree with that to move up to 70. But if they needed to get in front of 73, 72, and 71, what would be the best spot to go to?
I would go 70.
You go 70.
Yeah.
You're a big guy too.
I can do that. Middle school.
It's amazing how that worked out. So, another potential difference maker on the Lions, maybe not the beginning, but down the road.
And we talked about it in our draft reactions about he could be an untapped potential guy, right? He hasn't played the position now that long, but he has the RAS score. He's tall, he's fast, he's strong, he has great hands, he's willing to block. He just needs some coaching and he needs some experience.
Mm-hmm.
So why not learn behind Tim Patrick? Why not learn behind Amon-Ra? Why not learn behind these guys who are gonna be like a good room in order to learn from and coaching. We got some great coaches now in that Sky Montgomery moving to the wide receiver room to coach up those guys.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say the quiet part out loud here. This is a little controversial, but if Tesla was not a white wide receiver, would we be slightly more excited? I don't know. Potentially.
It's potentially,
yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Potential free agent signings. We talked a little bit about if the Lions go out and they look for safety, it's a bad sign for Avonte Maddox.
Yes.
Very bad sign. I think that they're rumored still to be the front runners for a certain edge that we know pretty well.
Yeah, Zadarius Smith coming in. He's still hanging out in Detroit. He's got cashed out. He's got his
Rasheed Wallace jersey on.
Just hanging out, going to the games and enjoying himself. But I would feel better. I don't know why. I think I like Zadarius. Do I think that he is the complete solution? No. But is he a depth piece that could support,
Davenport? Just keep if Davenport needs to get spelled a little bit to stay healthy, little things happen. That's a great rotation.
Or even Hutch. If Hutch doesn't play 90% of the snaps and he instead plays 70% of the snaps and Zadarius can come in and play 30% of the snaps, that could be helpful going in towards the end of our season.
Yeah.
So I would love to see Zadarius coming in, but the reality is I don't think he wants to hang out during off-season workouts. I don't think he wants to go through training camp. He's a vet. I think he knows he's a vet. I also think that he wants a little bit more than the Lions are willing to pay, and the Lions are giving him the rope to go find what he wants and says, "Hey, here's our $6 million.
Mm-hmm.
When you want to sign with us, the offer's on the table."
Yeah.
So
it makes total sense to me. Not free agents, but taking care of their guys. The Kirby Joseph contract. I don't know how much we touched on this last time, but Kirby Joseph, potentially one of the top 5-6 best safeties in the NFL, is now the highest paid safety in NFL history.
I wish I knew more about the ins and outs of bonus options and void years and how they're going to pay this guy. But to me, we have him. We have him for a while now. And we have the flexibility to kick that can down the road so we can pay other guys.
Mm-hmm.
So it tells me a couple things. It tells me, one, we like Kirby. We want Kirby around for a while. This might not be the last time we resign or extend Kirby.
Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah, the way that this is structured,
and that we still have guys like Hutch, guys like Gibbs, guys like Sam Laporta or Jack Campbell or Brian Branch to pay as well.
Yeah.
So we just. These are like rich people problems, right? The Lions are in the riches of quality players that they've drafted that now that we have to pay and find ways to keep them around.
When you draft well and you develop well and you have a salary cap, you have to get tricky with some of this stuff. So quickly on the Kirby deal, $36 million in total guarantees, but a very unique structure with annual option bonuses, allowing the Lions to really manage this cap hit effectively, and essentially really just kicking the can down the road to what it looks like is all dead money when he's not a Lion.
Not even a Lion, right?
But there's some negotiations with contracts in the NFL. Potential salary caps go up. You extend them out and you kick that a little bit further.
And I've also heard that right around the time that void year that cap money is going to hit is also a year that the NFL is renegotiating their TV rights and how possibly there be a boost in salary cap. So, you are either playing around with a genius with Brad Holmes and their capologists, or they're going to get into situations like the New Orleans Saints are.
Yeah, at this point, Brad Holmes gets the benefit of the doubt for working the cap. So one more tease. If you're watching it right now, please, hey, we don't have a ton of likes yet. We don't have a ton of subscribers yet. We're still working on the comments, so get in our comments, like, subscribe, give us some feedback. We want to be better at this, so let us know what we're doing. Next week, again, we're going to go rapid fire on the schedule. Next week, we're going to go really into depth on roster and position battles. And Brian's laid it all out, guys he thinks in, guys that are really at a stalemate to make the roster, or guys that are potentially going to be out this time next year. And that's all going to be new content next week. Quickly, we're going to go talk a little bit about around the NFC North.
Yes.
So, Packers, just got a Canadian poutine quarterback, signed Taylor Algersma from the Wilfrid Laurier University, added depth to the quarterback room. It's an interesting signing. I don't know if he makes that roster.
You have to have those arms in camp in order to alleviate, Love and those other guys that are behind him. So, you have to just have extra bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to fill out that 90-man roster in order to go into camp so that you're not crushing the starters either. So
yeah, I ran an algorithm search on the Chicago Bears radio talk, and I said, hey, what's resonating this last 7 days in Chicago Bears radio? And the algorithm basically came back and said, Ben Johnson's at his peak sexiness. Hasn't lost a game.
Yeah.
He's got all these weapons.
Yep.
And the fan base is starting to rally around Ben Johnson, saying like, hey, we are more confident now than ever that we got our guy. So he's the big talk of Chicago radio right now.
But it's funny they say that every time they get a new coach,
yes.
right? So It's not like they're hungry and they're wanting a winner in Chicago. And they hope that Ben Johnson's the guy. Now,
do you want him to succeed, or do you want him to fail?
No, he's in the NFC North. He's my enemy. I can like the guy. I can appreciate what he did for the Lions.
Do you want him to win all of his games except
I want
for
him to lose all of his games.
Right.
I want the Packers to lose all of their games too.
Okay.
And I want the Vikings to lose all of their games as well. I want the Lions to win all of theirs. So that's where I'm at as a Lions fan. Can I appreciate Ben Johnson and what he does? I respect the guy, but I want him to lose every game.
Yeah. So you tell us. Maybe this is a great, perfect comment. Are you rooting for Ben Johnson, except for against the Lions, or do you want him to fail? Me personally, I want him to do okay. I like the guy. I just don't want him to do well against the Lions.
Sure. I think he's going to be not the Chicago Bears head coach in 2 years. So that's where I'm at. Yeah,
you tell
he's going to lose all of his games.
Other news was just they're looking at the new stadium, whether it's going to be in Arlington Heights, which is the big rumor, or another place on the lake shore. Okay. They're still trying to sort that out. Minnesota Vikings. Have you heard anything going on in the North up there?
They love JJ. They have a great roster. Kevin O'Connell's kind of the quarterback whisperer and knows what he's doing there. So they're going to come in hungry as well. But if you look at what Vegas thinks, is they're going to have a tough schedule. They haven't projected only winning 8.5 games. So
they don't love JJ.
So that's the question, right? Yeah. They look at him taking a step back, and we talked about this as well. Like, Vegas doesn't make these predictions to lose money.
They are in it to make some money.
Yeah.
So how about this? Do the Vikings boast the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL? They combined for 2,500 yards last year, a ton of touchdowns. Is Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, are they the best two wide receivers duo in the NFL?
It's hard to argue, right?
The Cowboys just made an acquisition today. You saw that?
Oh,
George Pickens.
Yeah.
Him and CeeDee Lamb could be a formidable duo.
They seem like in Dallas, that makes all the sense, right? I can only imagine the bickering that's going to go on between why didn't you give me the ball this time, Dak? Because it's just going to be. I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah, they need a hooker on their team.
Oh, there you go. No, we're going to keep our hooker.
So, anything else that you want to touch on before we let this party go?
No, I really appreciate you guys continue to support us. We continue to want to build this to what it could be, and want your feedback along the way. So whatever we have to do in order to get you to hit that subscribe or like, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, thanks for passing time with us. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'm Brian.
I'm Rob.